The most simple exercise, which is to begin to experience yourself sitting very quietly and connecting with this sense of appreciation. And then filling your entire heart and being with it, and then radiating it and projecting it as a broadcast out to the world. And then moving to compassion. And the order seems to be important. Moving to compassion next, and then to forgiveness and humility and the deep understanding. It's the deep understanding of what is, that life is as it is, and we don't know better than life. And so can we embrace life? Can we be completely receptive? So that's the understanding I'm talking about. And finally, the courage to step forward, to really step forward with honor and with valor. So just doing that very simple exercise and intending to appear in our life as that template of heart qualities is profound. To do it, to sit and do it deliberately, and then to actually embody it, to feel as if you are stepping out into the world as this heart radiance.
And
so that's something we can do.
What does that create? Like, what does that... How intelligent is the heart? What kind of wisdom do we access? What kind of life then unfolds in front of us when we're living with an open heart, like you're describing?
Yeah. I think we can talk about that as there is something that begins to happen, an opening. And that opening is a relationship with life where you're living life as a mystery instead of a problem or a puzzle to be solved. You see, that's mind intelligence. Heart intelligence is very spontaneous. It's able to access our wisdoms spontaneously, so that our action isn't always sequential. It isn't reasonable. It isn't logical, but it's a mystery. And it is the kind of intelligence that just simply knows. Why? Because we're lined up. We become a conduit for that divine. And that is very different experience than staying in the mind, rationalizing, staying in the mind to always protect ourselves from something that we're afraid of. So this is that constant dance that I was talking about between hope and fear, because that's what mainly has been our experience. And you notice with hope and fear, you're never in the present moment. You're always in the future. And so the future is always the salvation, and you can't stay present, and you can't, if you're not present, how does the love actually ignite between us?
Is there a sacred space in the heart in particular? Is there a little spot that nobody has ever fully understood or can fully check? I mean, is there a part of this heart that is really a real mystery to all of us?
Well, the Sufis talk about the secret place in the heart that can't be talked about. So I don't know how to talk about it. But there is this mechanism, there's actually this magnetization that happens. And, heart math has produced some very interesting processes, for example, like freeze frame, where you are able to magnetize the field, the general field, and create, highly ordered heart rate variability patterns and like a coherence pattern. Now, the Sufis it looks like they went further, even, hundreds of years ago, where they actually worked with very specific angles of the heart, where these specific angles are actually domains, where they have a domain over specific areas in your life. Like the width has domain over your relational life, the depth over your ability to be compassionate, and so on, and the height, the elevation. And there's some wonderful teachers. Their name is Susanna Baer and Puran Baer, and they are actually going to inaugurate, I think in September of this year, a University of the Heart. And it is the I Am University. And their website is appliedmeditation.org. And they really, they're wonderful teachers and authors about living from the heart. So there is a way of magnetizing these very specific fields of the heart through breath. And of course, color comes into it again. And so as we magnetize these specific angles, the emotion rides on the breath. And there are breath patterns that are used to expand and stretch the heart in these various directions. It's quite amazing work. So there's another, modality that can be used. And there's so many. The Buddhist modality that is very directly related to heart expansion is working with a mandala, where you are understanding that your life is governed by 5 elements. Just the 5 elements. And you can actually see them right here in your hand. You have earth and water and fire and air and space. And it is the way that you dance these elements that can be a distorted dance, or it can be a wisdom love dance. And so what you are doing is you are observing how you are relating to these elements in your life. The distortion, for example, of earth would be that you have this experience that if you try to enter the spaciousness of this immense, vast heart, you have the innocent misunderstanding that you would be completely insignificant. And it's that response of insignificance that allows you to manipulate that pain of insignificance into being greedy or hungry or nurturing intrusively, trying to accumulate in life, really trying to get security. And it's all from an innocent misunderstanding. And so the Buddhists allow us to really begin to have an understanding of this inner architecture of distortion and wisdom. And that is another entry, into opening the heart and having a deeper compassion and understanding for ourselves.
Can you tell us more about that sacred mandala that you were referring to? Do we all have a mandala? Do we all have a unique mandala? Are we talking of a universal mandala? Can you tell us more about that for people that don't know about mandalas?
There is a universal mandala, and and we all have our unique mandalas that we are living, and these mandalas are actually ways of entering our inner architecture and understanding ourselves. So if you can imagine that there is this spaciousness, we talk about space consciousness, or we talk about open-heartedness. I find them really synonymous. And this open-heartedness is governed by how we relate to these elements and how these elements play in our life. For example, the space element. It's, if you can picture like a round circle and then various circles around it, in the center of that spaciousness is the element space. And the innocent interpretation that we have when we're distorted in space is that if we move into our vast heart, into our space consciousness, then we will be totally overwhelmed. And so you can see how an interpretation of that kind would cause you to have very specific defense strategies. Okay? And the basic defense strategies for a space distortion is denial. Okay? Or, for example, so that's very different than the Earth distortion. The interpretation there was, I'm going to be insignificant. The water distortion is, oh my God, if I move into my vast heart, something terrible, horrible is going to happen. So the interpretation is it's too dangerous. Okay? And what happens is with these misinterpretations is that the beautiful wisdom aspects of our heart are shut down. Like the wisdom aspect of the earth, is equanimity, the ability to be able to meet any life situation with equanimity, equality, so that we don't really live our life with preferences anymore. We just say yes to life absolutely every time, every situation, every person. So that's a beautiful wisdom quality of the heart. And with space, we have room for all and everything. We don't need to exclude anything. Everyone is invited to the table. And with water, we don't flare up in anger and we don't become sharp anymore. What happens is that we become a clear mirror for everyone and for our own life. So that's that clarity, that wisdom of the heart, the clearness about what is really going on. And with fire, well, fire seems to grasp. It's the dance of desire. And the interpretation there is that if I step into my heart, it is so vast, it is so open, it is so magnificent that I'm going to feel absolutely isolated and alone. And you see how terrifying that is. So when you work with that, then the heart begins to really move into a passionate compassion for all of life. And with air, you have this groundless anxiety all the time because you're trying to constantly have some kind of territory under your feet. And of course, the one that wants the territory is the identity that has mistaken itself for you because it isn't who you really are. You are the vast, open, magnificent heart. And so if you are always anxious, then you're constantly going to want to be moving and busy, and you cannot get still. And as a result of that, you don't really connect with your spontaneous, correct action, the action that simply comes out of the heart that knows, the heart intelligence. So these are ways of entering and cultivating the heart and allowing us to blossom.
But all those, how do we find out, what do we do with all those elements? Because all this really resonates with us, but what are the tools? How is there some kind of practical test that we could do, or is it questioning our own heart and seeing what's missing, or connect? How does this work on a practical level?
Once you have a sense of what the innocent misunderstandings are, then you begin to observe, and you begin to be aware of what is going on with you and what the defense strategies actually are. And so that's the first step. The first step is awareness. Now, a lot of times, once we become aware of some flaw of ours, we sometimes become very critical and judgmental of ourselves. And of course, that shuts the awareness down immediately. And so the second step is absolute understanding, compassion, and acceptance of what we become aware of. Okay, and we have to stay in that acceptance long enough to discern what the correct action is. So the first is, can we become aware of how we have been conditioned and programmed? We did the best that we could, and we developed defense strategies that basically they don't work very well anymore. They might have worked earlier on, but right now there are limitations in our life. So what we're looking at is, can we become aware of the limitations? And once we become aware of them, can we very gently hold them in our heart? Because the heart can hold anything. It can hold all of our flaws. It has no fear about that. It's only the mind that is terrified that we are going to appear, our image is going to appear as something that will be shunned, so we can't get acknowledgement and love and appreciation in our life, which we desperately long for. So, so it's a matter of perhaps some reading to familiarize ourselves, with this mandala, if that would be the method, if you're going to use that one, and then possibly to, find a teacher to work with. And most important is, I think, to sit and to be still and to enter deeply into the meditation of who am I? Who am I really? And to constantly ask that question. Just even the small question of who's doing this interview with Lilu? Who is that? Who is thinking these thoughts? Who is feeling these feelings? Because that keeps pointing the arrow back to who we really are. Because we have this propensity to constantly project out into the outer world. And it's difficult. We don't have a lot of support to stay inside. And so that's where we find the deepest recesses of the heart is inside. Once we find them, we can bring them out to each other.
Can we always live in the heart, for example, when we're at work or when we have a really intellectual piece of work, like a legal piece to do or something that doesn't really bring high vibration? How can we remain in the heart, or sometimes we have to shift back to our mind and then our heart, or from the heart, or from living in the heart, really everything flows and works out? And
Yeah. I would say that, from the heart, because the magnetic field of the heart has the ability to entrain the brain. So a lot of research has been done where it's been the other way around, but we now really understand that it is the heart intelligence that influences the mind. So whatever the situation is, whatever we can do to bring our attention even back to the heart. Now, there is a way to synchronize breath and heartbeat. And that is a very direct way of keeping your attention focused in the heart, so that you're actually practicing by feeling your pulse and breathing in synchronization to that pulse, to that heartbeat. Okay? So that begins to immediately put the attention right here in the center of your chest. And just even that sense that my attention is here and my heart is beating and I can feel it beating in the middle of my chest is a wonderful practice.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you very much for taking the time to explain to us all of this. This is wonderful. Do you have a last message or that you would like to share with us?
I think so. I guess I would say that, love is the very center of our life. It's the center of our relationships, our families, our communities. And when we don't stay centered there, many destructive things occur and beauty is destroyed. So love is, that's it. Love is.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mwah! I send you lots and lots of love.
And to Lilu, to you, thank you.